Hey friends, welcome to Eyezz. I'm Jarrett and today we're going to be talking about how to set up your turntable. This is the first video in a series that will cover the entire process from start to finish. Feel free to share these videos with all of your friends who are just getting into records. This video is for those of you who have just bought or are about to buy your first turntable, and my goal is to make these steps as simple and easy as possible. This video specifically will cover all the important parts of your turntable and why you need them. Also, to keep everything organized, the thumbnail of every video in this playlist will display their number. That way you can watch them in order. Alright, so you just got your turntable, you took it home and unboxed it. Now what? Well, the first thing you should do is place it on a sturdy, flat, and level surface. Placing the table in this type of area is key to playing your records properly, but for filming purposes, I'll be placing my turntable on the floor. Now we need to take a look at the different parts and understand why we need them. I'll be demonstrating on the Audio-Technica LP120, but no matter what turntable you have, the parts should essentially be the same. First, we have the dust cover. These are usually included with your turntable and they protect the entire thing from dust. So let's remove that so we can take a look at all the other parts. Next, we have the plinth. This is the main body or base of the turntable. The plinth holds all the other parts together. Next, we have the platter, which is the part of the turntable that spins and supports the record as it's being played. Next, we have the motor. The motor is connected to the platter and allows it to spin. Now, being that this is a direct drive turntable, the motor is hidden below and directly connected to the platter. In a belt drive turntable, the motor is placed on one side and spins the platter using a rubber belt, hence the term belt drive. I'll be talking more about those motors in future videos. Next, we have the record mat. The mat sits between the platter and the record. It reduces vibration caused by the motor and prevents the metal platter from scratching the underside of your record. The mat can also affect the sound quality of your record, but we'll get to that later. Next, we have the spindle. Simply, this is the center post that holds the record on the platter. Now let's move to the stylus. The stylus, also called the needle, tracks the grooves on your record. There are different styluses, or styli, for different record grooves, but if you're going to be playing the standard 12-inch LP records or 7-inch singles, a normal micro groove stylus will work just fine. This is the most common type of needle. Next, let's talk about the cartridge. The cartridge holds the stylus and converts its movements into an electrical signal. It's basically the little box connected to the needle. The head shell is another important part. It connects to the cartridge in two ways, using screws on top and 4 lead wires on bottom. These wires are color-coded in white, red, blue, and green. These wires will be important later. Now, the Tonearm will hold the entire assembly of stylus, cartridge, and head shell. The arm also moves along with the stylus, allowing it to ride in the grooves of the record. Essentially, the Tonearm carries the electrical signal from the cartridge to your turntable. At the opposite end of the Tonearm is the counterweight. The counterweight balances the Tonearm, but most importantly, it controls the tracking force. This tracking force is basically the weight of the needle pressing down, whether heavy or light. And if it's too heavy, it's going to carve up the record grooves and destroy both the record and the needle. But if it's too light, it'll skip across the grooves and scratch your records. We'll talk more about tracking force later. The next part of the turntable is the anti-skate. What does this do? Well, as its name implies, it prevents the needle from jumping the groove and skating across the record as it's playing. And as I just mentioned, this would scratch your records badly. The anti-skate is basically a counter force that prevents the Tonearm from being pulled too quickly to the middle of the record. For now, just set this to 0. Next up is the height adjust. The height adjust sits at the base of the Tonearm. As its name implies, it controls the height of the Tonearm. This is important because if the arm is too low, the needle will not sit properly in the groove. If it's too high, same problem. But when the Tonearm is completely parallel to the record, the needle will sit in the groove perfectly and produce accurate sound. Now let's move on to the cueing device. The cueing device is located next to the height adjust, and this little tool lowers and lifts the needle from the record. But you may be thinking, why do I need this stupid thing if I can just drop the needle on the record with my hand? Well, the cueing device prevents lateral or side-to-side movement, which can scratch your record. And unfortunately, our hands are just not that accurate, so it's better to use this device every time you play your records. Next, let's move to the start button. This button is pretty straightforward. It starts and stops the motor, which spins both the platter and the record. Next to the start button is the speed selector. These buttons change the speed of the motor between 33, 45, or if you press them both at the same time, 78 RPM. RPM meaning revolutions per minute. This is nice for when you're playing different kinds of records. Next is the pitch control. This little slider varies the speed of the motor, allowing you to raise or lower the pitch. This is mostly a DJ feature. At the top of the turntable, we have the 7-inch adapter. This adapter allows you to play 45 singles, which have a larger center hole. And finally, we have the cables. The first of which is the audio cable. This is an analog RCA cable extending from the back of the turntable. It has two connections, left channel, which is white, and the right channel, which is red. And the final part of your turntable is the power cable. This is your standard AC cable that plugs into an outlet and powers the entire thing. Alright, now that you know the parts of your turntable, be sure to click this card above or this annotation to watch the second video, which will be covering the cartridge and head shell. And as always, give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe, because I'm going to be coming out with a lot of great videos every Thursday and Saturday that you're not going to want to miss. Be sure to find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. All of the links are in the description below, and most importantly, friends, keep spinning that vinyl.